Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the universe. This is Teaching in Science in the Primary Grade class, and I am Mr. Calvin Christian B. Duque, and I am with Miss Shane Sagario and Miss Abigail Agustin, your presenter today. So our lesson for today is all about the motions of the earth. So what is all about the motions of the earth? From the word motion, it's all about the movement. So in short, the motion of the earth is about how the earth is moving, and it's all about the movement of the earth. So are you ready, class? So let's start our discussion. So our learning objective is, at the end of this lesson, the student will be able to demonstrate the ideas of rotation and the revolution, which means that the students will differentiate and define the ideas or the meaning of the rotation and the revolution. Then the second one is to generate ideas with the class or to share ideas with the class, so they will be able to collaborate and communicate, discuss to their fellow learners on what is all about the motions of the earth. And last is the formulate a mini resembled structure of the motions of the earth. So this will be a creation which is a physical objective of this lesson. So that would be all. So before we start our proper discussion, I have here three questions. The first question is why we are experiencing light during daytime and darkness during nighttime. And the second question is the planet Earth moving? And the last question is, what is the two different motion of the Earth? So I believe and I am confident that you would be able to answer these following questions after you watch these video lectures. You would be able to give an answer, ideas, and explanation to the following questions. So let's start our discussion. Are you ready? Because we are ready. Let's start our discussion. The earth moves into two different ways. We have the rotation and revolution. So now let's identify and differentiate these two. What is rotation and what is revolution? Rotation. What is rotation? Rotation is when the earth turns or spins on its own axis. So as you can see in the PowerPoint presentation or in the image, that when we say rotation is when the earth is turning on its own axis. So there is no changing of location of the earth, but in its own place or location, the earth is just turning. For example, the person or an individual that is standing and he or she is turning without changing its location. And so that is what we call the rotation. Its axis is an imaginary line between the North Pole and the South Pole. So the axis of the Earth is an imaginary line, so it is invisible. So between the imaginary line will identify between the North Pole and the South Pole. So when we say the North Pole, it is the upper part of the Earth, and the South Pole is the lower part of the Earth. And you can see at the image that there is a red line in the half of the Earth. So that is what we call the equator. Equator is the line that is dividing the North Pole and the South Pole. The axis is tilted. So when we say tilted, as you can see in the image, it is not the Earth is not straight. So it is tilted. When we say tilted, tagilid po siya. Hindi po siya straight na nakatayo, but tagilid po siya. So that is what we call tilted. The Earth takes 24 hours to complete a full circle or one rotation that is equal to 1 day. So for the sake or for the understanding of everyone, in every one rotation, it is equivalent to 24 hours or 1 day. So every day, the Earth is rotating once only. There is 1,036 miles per day. So that is the movement or the speed of the Earth every day. As the rotation of the Earth to its own axis, the half of the Earth that faces the Sun will experience day, while the other half will experience night. So as you can see in the image in the PowerPoint presentation, that the portion of the earth that faces the sun will experience the daytime, and the another portion of the earth that is not facing the sun, or the half portion of the earth, will experience the nighttime because they don't have the sunlight. So with that, in every day we experience the daytime and the night times because of the rotation of the earth. While the earth is rotating, the other portion of the earth will experience day, and the another portion of the earth will experience night. And after another rotation, the side of the earth that experience the night, they will experience day, and the portion of the earth that experience day, they will also experience night. So that is the effect of the rotation of the earth. So let us move from the revolution. So I will give the floor for Miss Abigail Agustin for what is all about the revolution.
Next is the revolution. To begin with, what is revolution first? So revolution occurs when the earth revolves around the sun. So gaya ng sabi kanina ni Sir Kelvin, ang rotation ay ang pag-ikot ng earth sa axis nito. And sabi din niya that there is no changing in position. So meaning parang umiikot lang siya dun sa pwesto niya. While in revolution, as you can see in our presentation, there is a arrow na parang nagtuturon na parang iikot yung earth doon sa sun. And doon na nangyayari yung revolution. Means, ito yung sun and ito yung earth. So, there is a changing in position. And sabi nga doon, revolution occurs when the earth revolves around the sun. And the revolution of the earth affect our season. But before that, we must know first the two position and the four characteristic of the earth. The North Pole and the South Pole are the two spots on the Earth's surface where the rotating axis meets the surface. While the four characteristics of the Earth was the winter, spring, summer, and the autumn. And this season occurs as the Earth's orbit around the Sun changes, and because of its rotation and tilts, the Earth position change around the Sun, and that different regions of the Earth receives the Sun's most direct rays throughout the year. Where in the Northern Hemisphere, summer begins when the North Pole tilts toward the Sun. In the Northern Hemisphere, it is winter when the South Pole tilts toward the Sun. So, what causes the Earth's revolution? As I research, Earth rotates because the Sun attracts it and pulls it toward it. Second, due to the Earth's revolution around the Sun, it tends to move away from the Sun in the direction of the tangent, causing a rotating force to work on it, causing it to rotate. And by that rotation, it can affect our seasons, and I discussed it a while ago. And now, let's proceed to the next topic, the solstice. A solstice occurs when the sun appears to have reached its farthest northern or southern excursion in the celestial sphere relative to the celestial equator. And annually, the solstice occurs on June 21 and December 21. And also, the solstices are used to determine the seasons in the different countries.
So let's proceed to equinox. What is equinox? According to what I have researched, the term equinox comes from the Latin roots equi, which means equal, and nox, which means night. One of the days in a year when day and night are the same length of time. Summer solstice, because the sun travels the longest path around the sky. At the summer solstice, the day has the most daylight. The beginning of summer on June 21 to 22. June 21 is the longest day through the history. The summer solstice, Slavic, Germanic, and Celtic tribes used to celebrate the midsummer with bonfires, believing that they would increase the sun's energy and ensure a healthy crop. Bonfires were also thought to aid in the exorcism of demons and evil spirits. Winter solstice, the hibernal solstice, happens when one of the Earth poles reaches its maximum tilt away from the sun. Once in each hemisphere, this occurs twice a year. The winter solstice marks the start of winter as well as the longest night and shortest day of the year. The beginning of winter on December 21 to 22 and December 21 is the shortest day. The spring equinox, when the sun crosses the equator's plane towards the appropriate hemisphere, making day and night equal in length. It occurs around March 21 in the northern hemisphere and September 23 in the southern hemisphere. Vernal is the Latin word for spring equinox, two moments in the year when the sun is exactly above the equator and day and night are equal length. Either of the 2 points in the sky where the ecliptic, the sun-annual pathway, and the celestial equator intersect. In the northern hemisphere, the vernal occurs on September 23 in the southern hemisphere when the sun passes south across the celestial equator. Autumn equinox, the sun shines directly on the equator at the autumnal equinox, and the northern and southern hemisphere receive the same amount of light. As the planet orbits the sun, the earth spins on a tilted axis. However, the earth does not tilt towards or away from the sun. Twice during its year-long journey around the sun, the beginning of autumn on September 22 to 23 after the fall equinox, the Earth's northern hemisphere begins to tilt away from the sun, resulting in longer nights and shorter days until the winter solstice on December 21. Lastly, while the solstices and equinoxes are connected, the solstices are the longest and shortest day of the year, and the equinox occurs when the day and nights are the same length.
As we end up our discussion or our topic, we wanted you all to remember that the two motions of the Earth are the rotation and the revolution, wherein the rotation is the rotation of the Earth on its axis, where there is no change in its position or in its location, while revolution is the rotation of the Earth around the Sun, where there is a change in its position or in its location.
So that's all. Thank you for listening and thank you being with us. Once again, we are the presenter. Remember that it takes 1 day to complete a 1 rotation and it takes 1 year to complete a 1 revolution. Hopefully, you enjoy and you have gained more knowledge today. God bless and goodbye.